Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Patricio, and I'm the owner of BizLaunch. Over the last 20 years, we've been educating, training business owners. That's what we do, and we really enjoy doing it, and I think we do quite a good job when it comes to educating and training business owners. But over the last 20 years, many times we've been asked about the franchising industry. You know, is it an opportunity? Is it right for me? And what I'm going to share with you today is based on our experience. And when I say our experience, I was a franchisee for 11 years. I've also done a bunch of franchise training over the years for different groups, some international groups. And then on our team, we've got a franchise salesperson that has sold over 300 franchises. So we've got some experience on that. And what I'm going to share with you are some tips and advice so that you're prepared when you get out there. So let's get going. What are the key advantages of franchising? And I believe there are some advantages for business owners. So let's go through some of the key advantages. The first one is that the franchisor, or the person that owns the brand, that owns the system, gives you a process or a system that works. So they've tested it. They've run it a couple of times. They created a pilot program, and they know that it can be replicated. So that's one of the big advantages, which reduces some of the risk. The other big advantage of a franchising is that you get training and initial business setup. And again, this depends on the franchise that you're involved in, but the majority of franchise groups will train you through the process. They'll show you the systems, they'll show you how to do things, they'll hopefully teach you a couple of marketing ideas, but really they'll help you with the training and the initial business setup. The other key advantage, and I think this is a big, big advantage, is the ongoing backup and guidance. You know, with a franchise group, it's their interests for you to be successful. It really is. The more franchisees that are successful, the better it is for the group. And often people will say things like, you know, franchising is being in your business, but not being in your business on your own. And that's really the key thing, is you have these people that have got your back and can help you through the process. The other thing is that I think one of the key benefits of franchising, especially if it's a bigger franchise, is you get the benefits of national scale. So you operate across the country or across the region. So when a customer approaches your brand or approaches your store or contacts you online, they know about the name already. You know, they've seen it in different parts of the country, and this gives a bit of comfort to them. The other key benefit of franchising is the bulk purchasing. You know, often franchising can do that. They together, as franchisees, have this option to get better deals. And for some franchises, you have where they supply the products, and for other franchisees, they allow you to go out and buy it out there. But usually they'll have accredited suppliers that you need to buy from. Again, it depends on the franchise groups. Some franchise groups are very, very strict, and others not so strict. So it really depends on the group you're involved with. The other key advantage of franchising is they give you a system, a structure, a process. Often franchisors will help franchisees with an accounting package, a system, a process, maybe a point of sale. These are the type of things that they help you with. If anybody has ever started their business on their own, you know how challenging this can be. You know, where you're looking for suppliers, you're looking for software, you're looking for all of these things in advance, and these things can be very, very challenging. And this is why franchising solves that problem for you. They solve their problem for you because they do the research up front, they identify the right suppliers, and they help you solve that problem. Obviously, it all comes at a cost. So I was doing an interesting presentation this week. I was at an interesting presentation, and one of the presenters gave a great example or a great definition for franchising, which I found very, very interesting. He was saying, and I agree with him, is franchising is basically in the middle of that corporate culture and entrepreneurship. So you're not totally on your own like you are in your own business, but you've also got the structure from the corporation. So I've found over the years that often people that come from a corporate environment, or people that come from the military, or people that come from those type of backgrounds, sometimes make the best franchisees. Because you've got to understand that franchising requires you to stick to systems and processes. So if you're too entrepreneurial, if you're on this side of the spectrum, this could be a big problem. These people that are too entrepreneurial don't make the best franchisees. On the other hand, if somebody is too corporate, they also don't make the best franchisees because, it requires a bit of entrepreneurialism. You've got to market yourself, you've got to lead people, you've got to guide people, all those type of things. So I think franchising is really in the middle. You're running your own business, but you're not on your own. You're not working for a boss, but there's structures and there's people you've got to answer to. So I think this is quite a good explanation of the concept of franchising. So let's look at more of the advantages of franchising. Now, this could be a key benefit. If a franchise group is well run, they've got trained field staff. So they've got people that go out, and when you've got a challenge, you can pick up the phone and say, "Hi, Sarah, I'm running a promotion next week Friday. I'm not sure exactly what to do. Can you give me some tips? Or are there any other franchisees that I can speak to," or whatever it is. Or how do I do this? How do I do that? Do you know where I should find out this information? So this is one of the key advantages of franchising, okay? They have trained field staff that are out there to assist you and guide you. Obviously, the bigger the group, the more field staff they're going to have, but this is one of the key advantages. Sometimes if a franchise is brand new, maybe the leader will be this person, but ideally as the group grows, you'll have people that you can connect with. The other advantage is you have the benefit of using the franchisor's patents and trademarks. And this is a very important thing. Actually, if anybody's ever tried and grow a brand from scratch, it takes a long time to grow a brand from scratch. And the thing that happens when a customer or potential customer approaches a business that has got an established brand, there's a bit of that trust thing. You know what you're getting before you walk into the store, and I think this is one of the advantages of franchising. Again, it depends on the power of the brand. This is quite a good thing. It depends on how powerful the brand is, but this could be a key benefit is they've got a powerful trademark that you can capitalize on or that you can use to help you grow your business. The other one is one of the key advantages of franchising is it's in the franchisor's interests to do continuous research and development. And I don't know if you watch much TV, but if you watch any of the franchising ads, they're always coming up with new products or they're always coming up with new innovations. And we see this often in franchising. And this is one of the key benefits. You've got, you can have a central head office that is always trying new products and trying new services. Sometimes they'll try it out with a few franchisees. Other times they'll launch it across the group. But the key advantage is you've got this ongoing research and development. Even if it's just from information from the franchisees and their customers, this is a key benefit of the franchising, which again, when it comes to being in your own business, this is one of the biggest challenges. Often we don't have the resources nor the capital to do continuous research and development. So that is quite a big advantage. Actually, one of the franchise groups we're working with, we went and visited them last week, and that is exactly what happened is they've come up with new ways of merchandising. They've come up with new ways of laying out their store, and you could see the benefits of the franchise here. They had all these stores giving their opinions about how they could improve the way they were doing things, and then the head office decided on a new system or process. So that's one of the key advantages of the whole franchising business. And the final thing, and I think this is something that people sometimes forget, is that, one of the biggest challenges we have if we are business owners is that being in your own business can get very, very lonely. Actually, I hear this often from business owners. They complain about the loneliness of being in their own business. Whereas if you're part of a franchise group, it can be a lot of fun. A lot of the events are fun, the conferences. In my years of franchising, that was one of the most fun parts, was meeting other franchisees, learning from them, and benefiting from their experience and their knowledge. A great opportunity to connect with people, and it solves one of those challenges. So where do we find the majority of information about the franchise industry? Now, I encourage you to do your research because there's tons of websites. If you go onto the internet this afternoon and Google franchising, everybody seems to be an expert. So that's the first thing. You've got to just be aware. Buyer beware, because there's a lot of people that claim to be experts. On the top left-hand side is the International Franchise Association. So if you just go to Google and type in International Franchise Association, it's a great resource. It's they educate franchisees, they educate franchisors, they run franchise shows. Basically, they're the centralized base globally for the franchise industry. So that is a great opportunity to go and learn. Go on there, watch a couple of videos, maybe read a couple of downloads, maybe go to their blog and get a basic understanding of how the franchise system works. Look at what the opportunities are, maybe attend a couple of franchise shows. These are some of the things you can do. So this is the biggest one, which is based in the US, and then in Canada, for those Canadians online, we've got the Canadian Franchise Association, which is really the centralized body for franchising in Canada. Not everybody's part of the Franchise Association, but a lot of the franchisees will be part of the Franchise Association. Another great resource that I find is the Entrepreneur magazine. I'm not sure if any of you read it, but they've always got some interesting stuff about the franchise industry. For example, they'll do the top 500 franchise lists. Not that this guarantees success. It may influence your decision about looking for trends and things like that. So I encourage you to go onto the websites, do your research, ask as many questions as you can, watch as many videos as possible, read blogs, all those type of things, and try and get a good understanding of how the business model works. Because really, franchising is about being in business, but having partners or people that guide you and advise you more than anything else. So it's being in your business on your own, but really not on your own. Now, before you get involved in any franchise opportunity, just be very, very careful of being too emotional. Sometimes we fall in love with a brand, and this is something you've got to be very careful. So I encourage you, like any other business opportunity, that you make sure that you do your research, that you have a very clear understanding of the business opportunity. So the first thing you've got to understand is, do you understand franchising? So let me just give you a very, very simple concept of what franchising is. Basically, a franchisor or a bunch of human beings come up with a great idea or concept that's quite effective. What they do is they replicate the model. Then they come up with a business process and operations manual. And then what they do is they get franchisees who pay to join the franchise model and participate in the success of the concept. And that's really what franchise is. You're buying into a brand, you're buying into a system, you're buying into a way of doing something. So that is the concept. It's your business, but there's always a but. There are a couple of conditions that the franchisor sets, and different franchisors have different conditions that you really need to understand. So it's your own business, but there are certain conditions that you need to abide by, which is a key thing. And the majority of franchise agreements have a term, so make sure you understand that part. When you purchase a franchise, you understand that you're purchasing a franchise for a certain amount of time. The other question you need to ask yourself, and this is very, very important, is, am I prepared to handle the workload and the long hours? This is especially true if you're going into a franchise that involves food, that involves retail. Understand that some of these franchises are 7 days a week, and they open their business every single day. And that doesn't mean you have to be there all the time. But for some of us, we control freaks, so we just got to be aware of that we may want to do that. And working in a franchise is hard work. I want to say that again. Working in your own franchise is hard work. There's a lot of work involved. There's operations, there's marketing, there's all those type of things. Even though you're getting a system, even though you're getting a working model, you still like a regular business owner. You've got to go out there, you've got to market, you've got to lead, you've got to do all those things. Very, very important. So ask yourself this question: am I prepared to handle the workload and the long hours? And I mean, a lot of the restaurant groups are something that I think about. You know, whenever somebody says this is a great franchise, I think to myself, how many hours are they open? How many days a week could I deal with that? And that's a question you need to ask. It may be a very profitable model, but it may take up a lot of your family time, so just be aware of that. The other one is, do you have financial resources? One of my biggest fears is when somebody goes into a franchise that they finance themselves up to the hilt. I'm really, really concerned about that. You've got to understand, like any business, I mean, you're not going to open day one and make profit straight away. Although there are exceptions to every guideline, it'll probably take you a bit of time before you break even. So you've got to make sure that you be able to survive and feed your family while your business grows. You know, because you open day one, hopefully have a good launch, but really it takes a bit of time to establish or to get to your break even. So one of the things you've got to look at is, do I have sufficient financial resources? And this is where it's very important getting information from the franchisor, but also discussing it with your accountant. Sitting down with your accountant, discussing your financial situation. And remember, I do not like people to take out too much financing for a franchise. So you've got to be able to put sufficient money down to, you know, give the business the opportunity to grow. So that's my thoughts. Do you have financial resources, first of all, to invest in the business, and secondly, to sustain yourself while you grow the business? Now, this is a very important thing with franchising. I believe this is one of the key things. I think the best franchisees, this is my personal opinion, the best franchisees are great with people, and they're good with marketing and selling. Great with people and good with marketing and selling. Those are my favorite franchisees. So understand, it's a people business. The majority of franchises out there that you're going to look at are a people business. So you've got to understand this. You've got to be dealing with human beings every single day. Is this something you can do? You know, and a lot of franchises are about dealing with customers and things like that. Is that something you could do? So make sure you understand yourself first. Could I deal with this on a daily basis? Will I be able to handle staff? And this is a big challenge. I can't tell you how many times I have heard from people that were in a corporate environment, high-level executives, maybe marketing managers or sales managers or whatever it is, or VPs, always worked with a team of people, bought their own franchise and realized, you know what, it's got a lot of work. Sometimes you have to clean the washrooms, sometimes you have to make sandwiches, sometimes you have to get in your car and go and deliver stuff, whatever it is these are some of the challenges people need to understand. Even though there's a model, it's still your business at the end of the day, and if somebody doesn't do it, you've got to do it. So the question you've got to understand is, with the majority of franchise groups, it's you as a leader and you have people doing a lot of the functions. So there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to manage people, you need to encourage and inspire them. Some franchise groups do the recruitment, so they'll help you recruit the opening staff, but not all of them do that. So the question you've got to understand is, can I manage people? Because really, that is often what franchising is all about. It's about managing people. So understand that and make sure you assess your skills and see if that's something you can do. Other questions you need to ask yourself, and this is a very important question, I think with any business really, is does my family wholeheartedly support me? You've got to understand, like with any business opportunity, there is a chance that you could fail. I believe that in franchising, the failure rate is a little bit lower, but again, it depends on what you define as failure. You know, I think that is the key thing. But you've got to understand that there's always a chance of failure. So your family's got to be behind you, especially in the startup stage. It's long hours, it's hard work, it's marketing, it's stressful. All those things are part of building a business and also of growing a franchise group. So understand that. Will the business be sufficiently challenging? So that is another key thing. You know, people will say to me, for example, you know, I want to go into the cleaning business. I think that's a very, very good business. Well, you know what, it might not be the right industry for you. Even if the opportunity is brilliant, very, very profitable, you've got to understand, will this be sufficiently challenging? You know, will be working with my hands every single day and counting a couple of things every now and then sufficiently challenge me? If the answer is no, maybe that's not the right franchise for you. So try and understand what will make you happy is the key thing at the end of the day. Can I accept the disciplines of a franchise system? You've got to understand good franchise systems or processes have very, very strict guidelines and rules. They do not want you to break the rules. So there are certain things you have to do that you may not always agree with. That is the problem. That you've got to understand that if you're very entrepreneurial and somebody's saying to you every Friday you've got to submit your order, or every Tuesday you've got to submit your financials, or every Wednesday you've got to come for training, whatever it is, and you don't agree with this, this could be a big challenge. Or you buy your products or services from these people, you don't agree. These are some of the challenges that you've got to be aware of, is that they're going to tell you what to do. And this may not make you happy. So understand those disciplines are quite important in a franchise system. That is the basis of a franchise model. It is a system that gets replicated over and over again. So understand that. Is the franchise route the best for me? You know, so again, it goes back to that discipline. They're going to give me guidelines. They're going to make sure that I use their logos, their fonts, their packaging. They're going to make decisions, and sometimes we're going to clash. They're going to come to my franchise and say, you're not allowed to do this, and they're right and I'm wrong. And you've got to understand this, that for some people, franchising may not be the right thing. The other thing you also got to understand is you're paying for something. You know, most franchises will charge an upfront fee, you know, for training, for the use of the name, and sometimes the setup costs of these franchises are very, very high. So just be aware of this. You know, it might not be the best thing for you. If you are too entrepreneurial, you want to make too many changes, you like doing things your way, maybe franchising is just not the right thing for you. So I don't know if any of you have heard about the 80-20% rule, but I believe this applies 100% in the franchise industry. This is my theory, is that 20% of franchisees are very, very successful. They are usually the multi-store owners. They own 3 stores or 5 stores, or they own a territory, whatever it is. But those are the 20% of the franchisees. I still think the 80% of franchisees are doing okay. They're not changing the world. A lot of them have bought themselves a job that they enjoy going to every single day, but most of them are not going to become multimillionaires being franchisees, okay? So that is my thinking. You don't have to agree with me, but I believe the 80-20% rule applies. That 20% of franchisees are making a ton of money, 80% are doing okay, but they're not going to change the world. I even believe this when it comes to franchise models, franchise groups, franchise brands. Not everybody's succeeding, and not everybody in a group can succeed. So that's a reality. So you've got to understand this. You want to be in the 20%. You really want to be in that 20%, but understand that not every franchise is successful. It very, very often depends on the franchisee, okay? I've seen this happen many times over the years. You'll have a franchise not performing that well, maybe sales, they bring in a new operator, great strategy, great energy, great drive, good at marketing, can turn a franchise around, okay? So for some people, it's just not the right opportunity. I know people that have gone into franchising thinking that they have a secure job and a secure salary, but they really sucked at this whole franchising thing. And so just be very, very careful that it's not an easy way to make money. Actually, there is no easy way to make money, which is the key thing. Other questions you should ask is, what are the total startup requirements? I think one thing you've got to understand is often we underestimate the startup requirements of a franchise. There are a lot of upfront costs that we're not aware of. Whereas if we're doing it ourselves, sometimes we can, we can nickel and dime, and we can, make decisions about buying things secondhand. A franchisor is not going to allow you to do that. So you've got to have a very clear idea of what the startup requirements are. The problem with some franchises can be quite difficult. Just think of it. Let's say, use an example of a store. If you're opening a 500 square foot store and you're opening a 1,000 square foot store, really it'll be difficult for the franchisor to tell you exactly how much the startup costs are. They may have to do a couple of calculations and things like that, and sometimes have contingencies because it's quite difficult. So what are the startup requirements is something that's very, very important that you need to know. What are the initial services offered? And again, you need to know this from the franchisor. What are they going to help you with? Are they going to help you find the site? Yes or no? Are they going to help you recruit the people, your employees? Yes or no? Are they going to be there to help you launch the business? Yes or no? Try and ask as many questions as possible. I think this is some great advice and something you need to do. What training is offered? And some of the training is very, very important. They need to train you on their systems. They need to train you on their processes. And if there's something to be made, they need to train you how to do that. So they'll coach you, they'll advise you, they may even have a mentor for you. All of those things are really one of the benefits of franchising. But again, you've got to understand it's in the interest of the franchisor for you to be successful. So make sure you understand what you're entitled to in the beginning. Because if it's a very small franchise, for example, maybe not that well developed, this could be a little low. Or for some groups, you have to fly to a different city or a different country to go and do the training. It can be quite expensive. So just be aware of this. Can you obtain a business plan template? So some franchise groups will give you a generic template that you can use to do your business plan. And I encourage every single one of you to do your own research. Do not rely on the franchisor. Do not rely on the franchisor. This is your business. Do your research. This is what I encourage you to do. Does the franchisor assist in launching the business? This could be a key thing for you. Maybe if you're a brand new startup, you've never done anything on your own. I know with some franchise groups that I've worked with over the years, for some of them, they'll be there the first week or at least the first day or two to help you through the process. So if you have a bit of a challenge, that could be something. So ask them, when you launch the store, when you launch the franchise, and I'm saying store, but a lot of franchises nowadays are not store-based. They could be office-based, they could be home-based, they could be online-based. There are so many different models nowadays that make it very, very interesting. But are they there to help you get up and running is really what you want to know. So I mentioned earlier on the importance of a business plan. I encourage every single one of you. You do a business plan because you want to check the viability of your business idea. You want to think about marketing ideas that you're going to be doing within the guidelines of the franchisor. Just be very, very careful. You've got to speak to the franchise head office and see if they agree with them. Make sure you calculate your own break-even, so how much revenue do you need to generate every month to survive and pay all your fixed costs. How much revenue do you need to generate every month to pay yourself a fair salary? You need to calculate this yourself. You need to look at your cash flow, all these type of things. Franchise groups are not allowed to give you numbers, okay? So really, you've got to do your own research, and it's really not in their interest. Imagine a franchise group saying to you, we believe you will do $500,000. What happens is you don't do $500,000, and you can come back and say, yeah, but you said. So this is why they do not hand out revenue projections. So you have to do your own research. You've got the advantage of the brand, the trademarks, the training, all that type of stuff, but you've got to do your own research. Just be very, very careful. Assume the worst, and it'll probably not happen, as usually my guidelines. But make sure you get a business plan template. If the franchisor doesn't have one, go online. There's quite a lot of resources. Create your own business plan. Sit down with your accountant. Do your research. Walk the area. Find the right site for you. That's what you need to do. Other questions you need to ask. What are the franchise fees? So, for example, there's an upfront fee when you join the franchise group. And then they will charge you a monthly fee, which will be a percentage of your revenue. Some of them are high and some of them are low. And some franchisees have fixed fee too. So you want to discuss with your franchisor to understand the model. How do they charge? You've got to understand this is how they generate revenue. So they need this money and they want this money. But just be aware that that is a cost that's going to come off your revenue, which is going to reduce your gross profit and obviously reduce your net profit. So you need to know what those percentages are. They'll charge you a franchise fee and often a marketing fee. So keep that in mind. What advertising and promotional support is offered? This is a good question, I think. Speak to the franchise head office and say, well, what are you going to do? Some franchise groups have local marketing and then have national marketing, have regional marketing. Some of them will help you with that, maybe have relationships with local media, online resources. All of those things are great opportunities, but you need to ask this question in advance. And I think this is a key thing about franchising, that advertising and promotional support. You need to have that. Often they'll have a marketing team or a social media team or whatever it is that can help you. Again, you need to ask these questions. Does the company have field support staff? Again, you need to know this. I'm opening in a region. Will there be field support staff? How often will they visit me? So often the field support staff are there for two reasons. One is the eyes of the franchisor, and secondly, to support the franchisees. So ask them this question. How many people are involved? How can you operate? Will they visit you? Do you call them? What is it? What's the process? So you have a very clear understanding. This is a very, very important thing, and I encourage every single one of you. If you're going to buy a franchise, speak to current franchisees. Now, understand, I think you need to speak to various franchisees because there are going to be some franchisees that are very happy and some that are not so happy. Every franchise group has those. So I would take a range of franchisees and go and speak to them. And one of the most important questions you ask any franchisee is, if you had to make the decision now, today, now that you've been in the franchise 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, would you make the same decision? If the answer is yes, that's a good sign. If the answer is no, well, I'd be worried a little bit. So speak to franchisees. Speak to them in similar regions. Speak to some that say positive things, negative things. Ask them about revenue. What should your expectations be? Ask them about expenses. The more questions you can ask franchisees, the better it is for you. So I encourage you to do that. Go and ask franchisees and get as much information as possible. They're your great resource of your research. So make sure you do that. Is the group a member of franchise association? Again, that doesn't guarantee anything, but the franchise associations in the majority of countries have some guidelines that their members have to stick to. So there's some rules and regulations that their members have to stick to, so that's a bit of protection. Not a lot, but it's a bit of protection. You can always go to the franchise association and say, I bought this franchise, I feel I was badly treated, they ripped me off, blah, 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 whatever it is, and they may help be able to help you. Now, I don't normally put Latin phrases in my presentation, but I think this is a very, very important one. And basically it's saying, buyer beware. If something sounds too good to be true, it is probably too good to be true. Just be very, very careful. Just be very, very careful of people gloating, showing off, whatever it is. Just be very, very careful. You want information, you want it written down, you want as much detail as possible, but also understand that franchisors cannot make claims. They can't claim things, so you've got to be careful. It's your money, it's your investment. If you take out a bank loan, it's your name on that bank loan. Just be aware of that. And I've seen so many franchisees over the years invest in a franchise, convinced they're going to make a ton of money and have a secure job, and they don't have that, okay? Just be very, very careful. Most franchisors have got their franchise interests at heart, their franchisees, but not all of them. So just be very, very careful. So make sure you do your homework. Things like make sure you do sufficient research. This is so important. You do your own research. You know, walk up and down the streets, speak to potential customers, all those things. Do your research. You know, you put your business plan on, that education you got, all those things you learned, and do your own research. So make sure you do that. Use a lawyer. This is very, very important. Find a lawyer that understands franchising, that has worked in the industry, because some of those franchise agreements scare me. They're really, really complicated, and they often suit the franchisor. So it's very, very important that you go and speak to a franchise lawyer, not a regular lawyer, a franchise lawyer that has experience, and they can tell you whether it's a fair deal or not. Same thing when it comes to an accountant. Speak to somebody that maybe does the accounts for some of the franchisees or does franchising accounting so that they understand the model, they understand the franchise fees, they understand the profitability, the business model, all those things. There are experts out there that understand the industry. Those are the people you should be speaking to, and it's money well spent. The money you're going to spend on a lawyer to read your agreement and the money you're going to spend on an accountant to help you check the financials are money well spent, is my opinion. I mentioned this earlier on, but it's worth mentioning again, is you've got to speak to franchisees. Obviously, it's a brand new franchise. That makes it very, very complicated. But the point is, ideally, you want to go and speak to franchisees. Ask them for the good and the bad. Maybe actually have a list of questions and go and do that. Obviously, there's no obligation on them telling you stuff, but if you're a nice person and ask, they'll give you some information. So develop your own business plan. This is what I recommend all of you do. You write your own business plan. Think about how you're going to work within the system to grow your franchise, and that's something that you need to focus on. And if you're ambitious and persevere, I believe that franchising can be a great success story for you. Obviously not for everybody, but for some people, this is the right thing. It's a nice model. It's got a trademark. You've got a regular salary, all those type of things. But I still think lifestyle and job security is often more important in franchising. And, you know, if you, that entrepreneurial thing of going on your own, that limits some of that or reduces some of that risk. It doesn't eliminate the risk, but it reduces some of that risk. So very, very important that this is the process. You have the initial discussion. You speak about the brand. You do your due diligence. This is a very, very important thing. You do your due diligence. It's your money. It's your responsibility. You meet the franchisors. Your attorney reviews the agreements. Very important. Before you sign anything, you go to your lawyer, your attorney, your barrister, whatever you want to call him or her. That's what you do. You go to the training, grand opening. Lovely little story, lots of stresses in between. But remember, at the end of the day, it is your business, and you've got to make it a success. So some of the franchise success factors that I've found over the years. These are some of the things that make it. Does a franchise operate in a large growing market? So what are the large growing markets in 2016? Anything service focused, some of the healthy foods, we've seen to be a massive trend in that. These are some of the things that you want to try and identify. Is there a growing market for this product or service? That is one of the key things that will influence your decision. Okay, you don't want to go into a business that's dying. You want to go into an industry that is growing. Is the growth in the market sustainable? Again, it's difficult to predict the future, but do you believe, based on demographics, based on the economy, based on some of these people you've gone to advice from, is the market going to keep growing? Those are some of the questions you need to ask. Let's see what else makes a successful franchise. Are the profit margins high enough? And this is a key thing. This is one of my biggest fears in 2016 with some of the franchises out there. They are so expensive. These startup costs are so high that it makes it very, very difficult for even with high profit margins to survive. Okay? So are the profit margins enough to justify the monthly royalty and to pay all the expenses? So these are some of the things that you need to look at. And can the product demand a price premium? This is always something that will influence my decision. I think, if the profit margins on the product or service are really high, this is quite a good thing. So can the product demand? I'm looking at the franchise group now. Very, very interesting. But their product is premium, and they can charge a premium price. To me, that's always a good sign. And the startup, the franchise costs are not that high, which is something that is quite important for me, because you want your franchisees to be very successful. That is ultimately, if I was a franchisor, and I'm not, I want my franchisees to make a ton of money. I want them to be very, very successful, because if they're successful, I will be successful. Does a franchise have access to sufficient capital? So that's quite an important thing. This is where you need your accountant and your lawyer to do a bit of research. Will this franchise group survive? Do they have enough cash flow? Do they have enough resources to sustain this model or not? So I did some interesting research on the, where the big growth is coming from. And you'll see some very, very interesting opportunities here. This is from Entrepreneur magazine, and you'll see that this is still the biggest. Quick service restaurants, or QSR, is still the biggest in franchising. But look at some of the others. Maintenance is quite a big one too. Personal care, look at that one, a big opportunity. I also like children's businesses. I think this is a growing industry. Services, retail, maybe not so big. Let's see what else we have. Hotels and motels, automotive quite big, home improvement seems to be growing. Full service restaurants, I'm not overly excited about this, but again, it really depends on you as an individual. But these seem to be the biggest growth markets, and often the ones that we see on a regular basis. But just be very, very careful again. The advantage you've got, for example, with a lot of these service-based franchises is the startup cost may be much lower, but the marketing costs may be much higher. So it may take longer to break even. When it comes to quick service restaurants or retail, your startup costs are high, and the rentals can be very, very high, especially in a lot of these malls. So just be very, very careful. Buyer beware is what I said. Let's look at some other franchise success stories or success factors. Is the brand well known, or does it have potential to be a big brand? Obviously, if the brand is well known, you're going to probably pay a premium. So if it's a well-known brand across the country, got a lot of franchisees already, you're going to pay a premium. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you are a new franchisee, imagine if I owned a franchise business. You're a brand new franchisee. If I had the option between selling a franchise to a brand new franchisee or selling another franchise to a franchisee that's already in the system, I'd probably sell it to another franchisee already in the system. So this seems to be quite a common thing now. A lot of franchise groups are looking for operators or multi-units, so maybe they'd have 3 or 4 units. I met a guy recently that had 9 coffee shops, for example. Very, very successful, but he started with 1, proved the model, then the franchisors encouraged him to open more. And that is one of the strategies as a franchisor if you're an established franchise. If you're a brand new franchise, again, remember you're taking a big risk. You won't maybe pay a premium for that, but you've got to look at the brand and decide, does this have the potential to become a big brand? So really, it's a guessing game. And based on the leadership, based on the ownership, based on the openness of the franchisor, based on their business model, you really got to visit the franchisor and, on your gut feel, you'll make a decision. But also get advice. Is there a high barrier to entry? And this is quite a key thing. I mean, if there's a lower barrier to entry, if it's easy to start and easy to get into this business, you've got to be very, very careful because it could be very, very competitive. Look at what the franchisor offers you that you couldn't do on your own. Or because they've got a big group, they've got the numbers to be able to do it. So is there a high barrier to entry? Will the startup costs give you enough return on investment? Is the investment very high? That could influence your decision. That doesn't guarantee you that if it's a low investment, you're going to make more money, but this could be one of your decisions. Does the group have a franchise culture? Again, meet the franchisees. Go to the head office. Go to the distribution center, whatever it is. Meet the people and understand. And does the franchise have a good leader? I think this is a very, very important thing. Actually, I've seen over the years, with the right leader, a franchise can be very, very successful. But with the wrong leader, absolute disaster. So make sure you meet the person that's heading this company. Do they inspire confidence in you? This is a key thing that you need to ask yourself. So some of the opportunities that I think are good, and again, this is my opinion, you don't have to agree with me. Anything in the kids business, education, activities, after school care, tuition, all those type of things. Again, if the startup costs are not too high, I think these are great opportunities. I've seen a lot of the tutoring services do really, really well. The second one that I think is quite a big growing industry across North America is services for seniors, helping seniors or helping their adult children to manage that. If anybody's ever had a parent with Alzheimer's, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. It is very, very challenging, and some of these franchise groups actually do a very good job of helping people with that. Obviously at a cost, but they do a good job. Environmentally friendly products and services, anything that is good for the environment, any of those franchises, I think are future opportunities. Anything pet-related, people love their animals, so I think those are big franchise opportunities. Anything fitness-related seems to be very, very popular. I mean, every now and then I'm turning around and seeing a new franchisor that has launched a fitness business, and the other one is healthy fast food. But really, you've got to find the right fit for you, and that is the key thing. If I say that I think service franchise is the best, if it's not right for you, well, then it's not right for you. That's all. You've got to make the decision at the end of the day. But I think this is where a lot of growth is going to come. And a lot of internationalization, I see when I travel globally, a lot of franchises are opening internationally or across countries, really dominating. Other franchise success factors: do the management have experience? Do they understand the franchise model? Have they been involved in franchising for a number of years? That could be quite an important thing that will influence your decision. The number of franchises open and in operation. Another thing I would really look at is how many franchisees have closed. This is a very, very important thing that you need to look at. So how many franchises are open, but more importantly, of those franchises or the amount that they've launched, how many have opened regularly. Another key thing that you've got to also look at, which I think is quite important, is where franchises are changing management regularly. That could be a problem. Either the store's not profitable or whatever the reason is, you want to try and identify that as much as possible. So if you see a lot of the franchise for sale, and I can give a couple of groups like that, that could be a sign that something's a problem. Another thing at years in operation, obviously the more established the franchise, usually the more credibility and stuff. But again, you never know. I mean, you could be getting on the ground floor of a very successful franchise, and that could be the opportunity. Do they have good training? Speak to the franchisees about that. They'll be upfront for you. And do they have ongoing support? All these things are very, very important that you need to look at. Let's see what else we got. This is such an important thing, I think, that you've got to understand that the majority of time I have found that the best franchisees are great leaders. They understand that the franchising model has got a discipline they've got to stick to, but they're great leaders. They inspire their people, they motivate them, they're great customer service, they're creative when it comes to their marketing within the boundaries that the franchisor gives them. They work with their community. All these things I find are what makes a good franchisee. When it comes to the franchise package, what does the franchisor give you? They give you the franchise agreement, which can be a very thick document like a book, so just be aware of that. They give you a disclosure document. Okay, this will give you information about the legal name of the corporation, the trading name, the registered office and addresses, who the directors are, their names, their addresses, their job title and their qualifications. So you get quite a lot of information about the group, their experience in the industry, do they have franchising experience and things like that, who their auditors are, who the accountants are, who their bankers are. They have a business plan of how they plan to grow the group and details of any legal proceedings for debts or other things. So this could be quite an important thing for you as, in your due diligence, see how many times they go to court could be something, or been to court could be something that you do your research on. Again, this is where having a lawyer is going to really help you, because they're going to go through this and make sure that they understand exactly what's happening. They'll also give you information about the franchise, what's included in the franchise purchase. Again, they'll give you a little bit more detail. The financial contributions that the franchisee has to make, so they'll give you an idea of your investment. Obviously, there's always room for room for contingencies. That's the word I was looking for. So keep that in mind. They can give you a list of existing franchisees that are out there already, any financial information. Again, just be very careful of that. They're not allowed to give you too much financial information. By law, they're not allowed to give you too much financial information. But that doesn't mean you mustn't ask, but just understand that. So let's just summarize so that we can finish this webinar on time. Make sure you do your research. Buyer beware is my advice to you. Is franchising right for you? Decide. It might not be the right thing for you. Maybe starting your own business is the right thing for you. But I've seen a lot of really happy franchisees, and on the other hand, I've seen a lot of happy business owners. So it really depends on you. Are you prepared to work hard? Franchising is hard work like any business is. You're sometimes going to be cleaning floors, on the phone, and working late, and that's something you've got to be aware of. It's your business at the end of the day. So do your research twice. I mentioned that on purpose. And develop a business plan to make sure you check the viability of the idea and get professional advice. Very, very important. And finally, most importantly, don't give up. So is franchising for everybody? No. Is it good for some of us? Absolutely. I have seen some very, very happy franchisees out there that are happy with the group. They're making some money, maybe not making billions, they are making some money, they're happy with the industry, and they love being part of a franchise. So use this information, build a very successful business, and I'll be very happy for you. That is my wish for every single one of you online.